Hello, welcome to my presentation. So to start the presentation, I would like to mention the chat number and the submission number of this paper. So this paper is under special track 2B. All the information is actually shown on the screen, and the submission number is 112 112. The title of the paper is Trust Enhancing versus Trust Enabled Data-Driven Technologies in Sustainable Smart City. The case of COVID-19 contact tracing apps in Hong Kong. And I'm Professor Wilson Wong, the Program Director and Associate Director, Associate Professor of the Data Science and Policy Studies Program in the Faculty of Social Science, the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So we are going to talk about data-driven technology and also the case of COVID-19 contact tracing app in Hong Kong, as the title suggests. So this is the presentation outline. I will basically talk about 18 to 90 minutes. The whole video will be around 20 minutes. So I'm going to introduce a little bit about the concept of smart city and contact tracing. And then I'm going to tell you the research questions in my project. And after that, I will tell you the research design and introduce you to some more information about the contact tracing app for the COVID-19 in Hong Kong. And I actually have developed a framework. It is a standard framework to evaluate the trust of technology. And finally, we will talk about the implication and the discussion points of the project before we come to the end of the presentation, in which we tell you about the future research plan and some of the limitations of the study. So that is what you see now is a very popular picture. We always use in describing smart city because smart city is basically trying to link up all the data-driven devices all over the city. So if you want a more formal definition of smart city, you can have here on this slide. Basically, smart city is a city that uses a lot of information and communication technology, ICT, to create connectivity in order to share information among different devices, to produce higher quality of public service, and also to try to enhance the citizen welfare. And when we talk about smart city, we also talk about the sharing of data, so that smart city is closely related to the concept of co-creation. So we use the data to co-create new service, better service. And we also talk about, in terms of data governance, we also talk about the co-ownership of the data and how to use the data together between the government and the citizens for some co-innovation. And in the paper, I actually also argue that smart city is a data-driven city, which is not difficult to understand because all the smart cities relies on data to function, to perform better. So basically, you can take a smart city as a data-driven city. Without data, basically, there's no smart city, to be more precise, if not go to the extreme. And also, smart city technology are mostly related to data-driven. So all the technology relies on collecting a lot of data. And that is why I also argue that many smart city technology are actually trust-enabled technologies, in the sense that if the people, particularly the users or the citizens who provide the data to smart city don't trust the technologies, then what will happen is that the people will be very resistant either to provide the data, or they will, as I can say in the case of the COVID-19 contact tracing app in Hong Kong, they basically can even refuse to adopt the technology. So how to build up trust is very important for the development of both the data-driven technologies and on the whole for the smart city itself. And there are many different smart functions, and in Hong Kong, basically every area of urban functions can be transformed into a smart area, so that we have 6 areas of smartness in Hong Kong. But because of time, maybe I go to the some of the literature review and tell you the overview of the study. So basically, if you look at all the literature about ICT or smart cities, there are different angles of organizing them, or the perspective of looking at them. The first perspective is what we call the supply side and the demand side. Supply side meaning that what are the technology government are trying to promote or trying to introduce. As what we will do in this study, basically we are trying to adopt the demand side, meaning that we are looking at the reaction of the citizens, taking a perspective of the user to see whether they will accept the technology, adopt it, and cooperate with the developers, which are in this case is the government, to in order to create new services with the new technology. And so in terms of technology, as I mentioned in the earlier part, we can divide the technology into trust enhancing and trust enabled technology. And as I argue again and again, mentioned in this presentation and also in the paper, we believe that a lot of technology are actually trust enabled technology in the context of smart city. Without trust, people don't provide the data, don't adopt the technology, and then basically the technology is empty. It's basically useless. But some of the technology, especially in the previous decades, related to ICT, many of them, like e-government, actually can be considered as trust enhancing technology in the sense that you're trying to provide more information to citizens. So when the government becomes more transparent, more responsive, then people will trust the government more. So and when we look at the demand side, we also develop some of the theoretical premises, and which is actually the underlying theoretical framework of this study. So technology adoption is a complex and developmental process, and it is also a social process. So people have to trust the technology, they like the technology, and then they adopt it, they use it so that the technology can function at the optimal or desirable at the level as it is designed. So it is very important to look at the context of the technology adoption, in which case we need to focus on the human technology interaction, and particularly in this study about how to create trust between the user and the technology itself. So in a nutshell, this paper is taking the demand side system perspective to look at the adoption of the COVID-19 contact tracing app in Hong Kong. And we developed a framework. I call it the 4P framework. Originally, it's just the 3P. If we look at the literature, so we look at the process, performance, and purpose of the source of trust of the technology. And in this study or in this paper, I add one more dimension, which is called the protection there. And then what are the research questions? So basically, the main research question I look at, which is a research puzzle, is basically the contact tracing app in Hong Kong is not very popular. You can consider that the contact tracing app in Hong Kong is massively rejected by the citizens. Not all the citizens, but something like half of them or 60% of them. I'll show you more data later on. This is strange and weird to me, or strange and difficult to understand if you look at it from the surface. It is because Hong Kong is a very digitally advanced city, so it is very strange for a digitally advanced city to reject a contact tracing technology, a digital technology, in the pit of this COVID-19 crisis. So originally, if you believe Hong Kong is very digitally advanced, and then you face a COVID-19 crisis, then you have a contact tracing app, which is a digital mobile app, then people should love it. So what's the reason between the gap of the theory and the reality? So that is what I'm trying to look at in the paper, and also I'm trying to inform you more in this presentation. So what you are seeing from this slide is basically the daily cases of Hong Kong during the since the outbreak of the COVID-19. And when is the app being introduced? The app is actually introduced right here. This is the fourth way in Hong Kong. So it is actually being introduced in the perfect timing when Hong Kong is going to face a sudden surge, a big jump in the daily cases. But so if people believe in technology, people love the technology, they know how to use it, then the contact tracing app in Hong Kong should be quite popular because it's being introduced right here when Hong Kong should need it the most in order to resolve the crisis, which is in the mid November last year. So quickly to tell you about the nature or the method and data of this study, it's basically a single case study taking a systems approach. So for the data sources, it includes government website, government archive, and all the media reports, including the social media and such as the YouTube. So contact tracing is something very popular in the world. And a lot of contact tracing is actually done by digital tool. But some countries, as far as I know, they actually use people to trace to do the contact tracing. So they're basically making phone calls. But for many areas, including Hong Kong, we try to introduce a digital device. And Singapore also do it that way. So you download, ask people to download a mobile app, and then the mobile app will do the contact tracing automatically. So that is the contact tracing app in Hong Kong. We call the Live Home Safe. So it is something like a QR code, but you need to download it to your the mobile phone. And then before you enter a venue or a public transportation, then a taxi, then you scan the code, and then you automatically store your visit information there. So basically, the logic of the operation of the app is not difficult to understand. So you scan you download it, download the app, and then before you enter a venue and public transportation, and then you will scan the QR code, and then the app will store the visit information, and all the information will be stored just inside the app and will be automatically erased 31 days after. But if you are a confirmed patient, then the app will upload all the information to the government cloud computing, and then the government will collect all the information, and they will retain the information for 7 years. But if nothing happened, you are not a patient at all, then the data will be automatically erased after 31 days. But they will also give you a notification in case that there is a risk that you may be exposed to a person who are later on confirmed as a COVID-19 cases. So it is basically a digital notification app. If you happens to visit a venue in which a confirmed patient have visited there before, then they send you a message. So if nothing happened, you are never confirmed, then all the information will just be in your app, not uploaded or not being submitted to the government. But very interestingly, people are very reluctant to use the app. So that in Hong Kong, we also have some alternative method of recording your visit to a venue, so that if you don't do the app, and then people will put down the information on a piece of paper and then drop into the box. So that's very funny. So on the one hand, they have the app, but because people don't like it, so they also at the same time introduce the most traditional way of recording your visit. You basically put down information and put it into the box. So you either do the app or do the pen and paper way. This is mandatory. You have to do one of the two ways. So if you try to classify the app according to what I call the MIT COVID tracing tracker, which is developed by the MIT Technology Review. So that is some more background information about the app. So for the download is voluntary, and for the limitation on the how to get data, that's is supposed to be only used for the contact tracing of COVID-19, and then the data will be erased according to the government after 31 days, and the data collected is highly minimized because there's no need for the user to register it. So you just download it, and according to the government, the app have no access to the GPS function in your phone. So they only collect the information as you scan the QR code. And then is the effort transparent? Yes or no? Because people try to ask for the open source coding, in which the government refused to disclose it. And also for some of the key performance indicators, like how many people use it, the government basically do not give out the data frequently, and it's up to the government how much data they are going to give out to the public on that. So it's just partly transparent. So maybe I would look at the reactions of the public first, and then I'll use the framework to explain why the public is rejecting it, and so why it is so important that we have to take care of the human side or social science side, or depends on how you call it, the technology acceptance side of technology in order to make sure that technology is trusted and used by people. So many people in Hong Kong actually do not like it. So you can look at one of the survey done by actually my university, the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Half of the people in Hong Kong actually do not use it, or they have never downloaded it. So that actually contradicted with some of the official figures given out by the government. According to the government, the download rate is over 5 million in this August. So actually, it's almost 70% of the population in Hong Kong should have download and use it. But when you do the government university survey, when you look at it, actually half of the people do not use it. So why is it? Why people don't like it? So I have a framework to talk about that. And actually, it's not the only case in which smart city technology is rejected in Hong Kong. If you're interested in that, you can search for some information about the smart lamppost in Hong Kong. It's again another smart city innovation which is rejected in Hong Kong. People basically destroy it in one of the protests. So similarly, people protest against the Home Safe app. And I'm going to tell you the reason using the framework. So the framework I have is basically called the 4Ps framework. So basically look at the process, performance, purpose, and protection. So I already have the definition laid out there, so that I'm not going to go into the details. So I will go straight into the evaluation. But you can either look at this PowerPoint or go to the paper, or you can basically search it in the literature. It's well known. But I add a new dimension called protection, which means that people we have to protect the privacy and the system rights of the people by technical features, policy, and also institutional safeguards. So what the government should do more is we look at the 4Ps, 4 aspects of trust in technology. All areas have some problems, and we found out that for the protection, it is the weakest link. So for the process, basically, the government is not very transparent about the process. They don't disclose too much data, and it is no open source. And for the performance, as I say, basically for the performance, it means that the technology need to perform better than other methods. But since people can use a piece of paper to jot down the information, so the performance is not extremely good when there are alternative methods that can just do the same thing. We have actually more protection in the eyes of some people, more protection of their privacy, because they don't have to use the app in which they think there may be some backdoor and government can easily get that information. And for the purposes, it means government have to communicate the use of the app. But although the government communicated it quite well in the official website, but there's a huge difference in terms of the influence of communication channel between the government and the civil society. So for the government, actually they create some YouTube videos, but it is only watched by 1,000 people. But for the civil society, they actually people who have doubts on the protection of the privacy of the app, that video actually watched by over 150,000 people. So that's a big impact about what the government say and what the civil society believe in. A big difference, big gap. And one of the weakest link, I believe, is the government in Hong Kong do not provide enough protection in terms of the privacy and citizen rights. They do emphasize the technical features in which they do the technology, the app itself will not collect any other information except the visit records. I think they also did a good job in terms of the policy. They put it down in the website. However, there is a weakness in terms of the institutional credibility. Basically, there's no accountability system there. It is just a whole bunch of experts who discuss how to do the app and then tell the public how to do that. It's not very transparent, and you do not know how you can hold the people accountable if something happens. So institutional credibility is one of the weakest things. So even though the government promised they will not do that, but there's actually no such accountability mechanism in place. If somebody like the official did not do what exactly they have said, then what will happen to them? Will they be penalized? There's no such system in place for the execution or the implementation of the app. So because of time, I think the conclusion I would like to add is all 4 dimensions of trust is very important, but unfortunately the government didn't look at all the dimensions closely, and particularly for the 4th dimension, like the protection of human rights and privacy, they did not put in any system of data governance. They do not put in public engagement, accountability system, although they promise, keep repeating that they do protect privacy, but it is not enough in terms of building institutions to make sure those things will happen. So I think that is the most major lesson we can get. And because of time, I'm not going to go through the details about the limitation and the future directions, but you're welcome to join my presentation in the conference so that I can answer more questions you may have. So I think time is up. So I will basically finish my presentation here. And thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.